Jamie, thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. I really appreciate the uh, the handoff, and I want to talk a little bit about helping clients avoid skilled care purgatory. I'm Chalon Jackson. I'm the key account specialist and compliance officer for senior marketing specialists, and I cannot think of a better way to lead into this presentation because I think what a lot of people look at is long-term care, obviously not covered by Medicare, but we look at skilled nursing care or home care as kind of a lead in to what eventually turns into a long-term care need for a lot of clients. So, looking at the big picture, looking at skilled care and some of the gaps in Medicare, I really hope that a lot of this is kind of review for a lot of you in terms of how Medicare works, what it covers, what it doesn't, and some of these really common issues. But I hope in this presentation there are a few tricks and treats that we can help you uncover to assist your clients in getting the care they need. And first of all, going generally into what Medicare will and will not cover. In these limited circumstances, Medicare will cover skilled nursing care as long as you have been an inpatient in the hospital for 3 midnights, which is a challenge that has been ongoing for several years. We saw some flexibilities during the pandemic that have caused a bit of a shift in the mindset regarding whether or not this is an applicable rule or whether it is actually doing more harm than good for most clients. Your doctor has to agree that you need that skilled trained staff care every day, and you have to need it related to a hospital acquired condition or a condition that develops while you're receiving care related to that previous hospital stay. And of course, it has to be at a Medicare approved facility. But as I mentioned, the big hurdle, the number one hurdle so far is that inpatient status. Having that inpatient status for 3 midnights in a hospital. So when the clock strikes midnight on that third night, that's kind of the notice that, hey, we're going to qualify for skilled nursing care. But of course, as previously mentioned by Jamie, the biggest impact is folks that are either not classified as inpatient or only classified for 1 or 2 days and then changed to an outpatient classification. And this is a big point of advocacy and education for agents everywhere to be talking to your clients about how to make sure that they are properly advocating for themselves, to make sure that they are appealing their status if it's deemed necessary, to make sure that they are qualifying for the benefits they deserve, depending on the severity of their condition. I would specifically call out CMS Form 20027, and of course, reach out if you need the slide deck for this. I'll have my contact info at the end. That is a redetermination form that anyone can use to appeal that classification of outpatient versus inpatient. Another great point of order for agents is to make sure that as you're talking about long-term care, as you're talking about skilled nursing and the challenges with Medicare, make sure that you are discussing with your clients' beneficiaries or power of attorney or whoever might make decisions or assist them in making decisions when they need this care so that they can advocate on behalf of those beneficiaries if they can't speak for themselves. Also make note of what that beneficiary may need in terms of waiving the rule. If they're using certain providers that are part of, for example, an accountable care organization that's enrolled in a trial program through Medicare that gives them access to waiving that 3 midnight rule, they may be able to qualify for skilled nursing without that 3 night hospital stay, and in some cases, with no hospital stay at all. And in some trial programs that we have seen under the Medicare Innovation Center, we've seen some pretty big impacts where we have seen statistically significant reductions in readmission rates for organizations able to waive that 3 midnight rule. So looking at those ACOs, if there are any in your area, and how they may be able to assist in accessing skilled care for these clients. Looking at Medicare Advantage plans that also have the ability to waive the 3 midnight rule in some cases. these can be great resources for your clients in understanding how to get into that skilled care situation that allows them to recuperate to a level that means long term care, custodial care, is not as imminent as it might be in other cases. Of course, we already discussed a little bit the costs of care, what things look like under original Medicare, where in general, as long as it is approved and qualified and meets all of the other rules for being approved care, the beneficiary generally will not have any costs in that first 20 days. But as Jamie already mentioned, there are cases where those first 20 days may not be approved, where they did not meet that requirement of inpatient stays for 3 days. But even beyond that, days 21 through 100, $200 per day coinsurance, and then, of course, past day 100, beneficiaries are responsible for all costs. So, this is where something like the Aetna plan, I'm going to talk a little bit about product at the end of this presentation, but I want to focus primarily on what we can do to help make sure that first 20 days at least is covered. And a lot of it has to do with this advocacy and education that we've already talked about. Another thing to keep an eye out for is things like advanced beneficiary notices. Providers often provide these to beneficiaries if they think that Medicare is going to deny a claim, or if there is a change in the status of a claim that might indicate that their coverage is going to end or may not be approved in the first place. So again, that is a time where this advocacy and education of how to appeal their status, how to appeal their care decisions can really be beneficial. And looking at these costs, it demonstrates the importance of shopping around to providers. And I think, as I'll talk about later, an agent has a role to play in that as well. Getting to know the providers in their area, getting to know who they're going to be working with when their clients have questions about things like skilled care or home health care. One of the biggest challenges that I tend to see with agents is confusion about when care does or should end. And there are a couple of ways that skilled nursing care can end for a client. In a perfect world, of course, that care ends when the person is fully recuperated, recovered, just as good as before this acute need occurred. And I think that's the big thing to think about with skilled nursing care is it is generally to meet an acute care need that is the result of an illness or injury that debilitates the individual. But if they're going to continue to receive care under a skilled nursing benefit with Medicare, they're going to need to be showing improvement, gains on motor function, daily living skills, various other metrics that show that they're still continuing to improve in their care, or show evidence that their condition would deteriorate if they stopped receiving that care. If someone is kind of flatlined, they've plateaued, they're not getting any better, but they also won't get worse if they stop getting this care. That is typically when you see people getting discharged. And unfortunately, there's a lot of disagreement about that. Medicare Advantage versus Original Medicare is one of the biggest points of contention in the industry right now when it comes to skilled care. If you talk to I would say 98% of people at any skilled nursing facility, many of them have a pretty negative view of Medicare Advantage and how those plans often pay or administrate skilled nursing benefits. And a lot of it comes down to how often there is an assessment of that client's status, whether or not they're continuing to improve, whether or not they will deteriorate if care stops. And I think that's a really big point for people to latch onto because as we continue to see in the news and see in Congress and see in various other spots, all these discussions surrounding the use of AI or generative technology in claims, this is really one of the most contentious talking points where the use of predictive modeling to administrate claims, particularly skilled nursing claims, is resulting in shorter lengths of stay that in theory makes sense based on past claims data, predictive modeling, actuarial data, but it's not necessarily looking at that individual person's medical record and establishing based on that individual's plan of care what makes the most sense. It has a lot more to do with, say, what the last 10 hip surgeries required as far as recuperative care instead of that person's particular plan of care. If we start looking at not Medicare Advantage or original Medicare, but just in general, right now around 40% of people discharged from skilled nursing fail to regain the same level of independence that they had prior to going into skilled nursing. And that statistic, unfortunately, doesn't even capture people who are not qualified for skilled nursing in the first place due to that inpatient outpatient issue and the 3 midnight rule that was previously discussed. So there's a lot of changes and challenges with discharging someone from a facility back into their home or a community setting where they'd have to try to readjust to life outside of that facility. And again, this is where a lot of long term care claims begin. So, helping clients understand and manage the Medicare claims process can really help save them a lot of money, save them claims hassle, and make sure that someday when they do need that more custodial long term care, their claims are more likely to be approved. So, definitely something to consider. And of course, for every discussion around skilled nursing facility care, we'll also start talking about home health care. It is, of course, a great option for certain people. It does not cover custodial care, but it might cover certain home health aid services related to related to that care that you're receiving in your home. In most cases, it does require at least one face to face visit with your provider before approving that home care. And you have to qualify based on it being difficult or dangerous for you to travel for care, meaning that it is, more dangerous for you to get out and about, go to see doctors, go to a facility, or than it is for you to stay home. And in general, most beneficiaries will pay $0 for home health services and 20% after deductible for Part B covered equipment. But I think the biggest thing that people miss or mistake is assuming that this is a good substitute for skilled nursing facility care. A lot of folks will say, well, look at these copays, look at this coinsurance. Maybe I have a med sup. This is going to be a lot cheaper, a lot more affordable than a skilled nursing facility and those daily coinsurances or copays. Unfortunately, it is not a total replacement for that type of in facility care. One of the big aspects of facility based care is you're required to need that care pretty much 24/7. You'll need constant supervision and assistance with your living activities as well as the actual medical care that you're receiving. Whereas people who qualify for home care options have a tendency to need more casual or less often receiving care. In fact, you must be receiving care for less than 8 hours a day and no more than 28 hours per week to qualify for the home health services under Medicare. So definitely something to be considering as you talk to clients and looking at their different options and not making assumptions that they will have a choice in which type of care they receive based on preference, but rather looking at what their choices are going to be based on the type of care they need. And again, this is something we'll talk a little bit about product at the end because there are some fantastic solutions, but it's a lot more about understanding the intricacies of Medicare. So again, for home care, you're going to need less than 8 hours per day of care, less than 28 hours per week to qualify for those home health services. So that's where something like a home health or custodial type product, short term care product, might be an assistance to lower that care need and provide custodial care that's needed, while the actual skilled care or medical care can be provided on a more part time basis to help lower overall costs for a client. Now, in keeping with our spooky theme, I've been trying. You may have noticed my titles for my slides. I'm trying to be as spooky as I can, and this one I was really proud of. It isn't easy using Ouija, and sometimes it can feel like you're trying to get to another dimension, talking to providers, talking to people who work with your clients on the other side of this equation, and actually giving them care. And I think this is one of the best ways to protect your clients is just to talk to doctors, talk to nursing facilities, talk to home health agencies. Not that they don't know what they're doing as well as you know your job, but there's a lot of crossover and a lot of maybe misconceptions that can be realized and addressed by communicating with these providers. You should be asking the questions that your clients are going to be asking. There are a lot of things that are going on in their lives or going on with your clients that if they're looking at skilled nursing facilities, if they're looking at home health care agencies, they're going to have questions. They need to be asking questions. So anticipate some of those. Look at Medicare's skilled nursing facility checklist. Take a look through that and start asking those questions to local providers. This is not only going to help you build those relationships and help clients get coverage when the time comes, but as you look at products to address these unfunded needs for some of these clients, it's also going to allow you to better understand the rates in your local area and understand how much coverage to write many of these clients. Start looking at those costs, length of stays, look at quality rating for facilities or customer surveys for those home health agencies. Take a look at what people are going to be experiencing when they receive this type of care. And then talk to those doctors. So any of your doctors that specialize in geriatrics or maybe specialize in some of the other commonly held specialties that your more geriatric clients may see, talk to them about plans of care. That care plan is the biggest, most critical piece to getting coverage on a longer term basis for these clients and making sure that they're getting the care they need to recuperate to a level that they can regain that independence. So, talking about those care plans, talking about the rights and protections of Medicare individuals and how to best address those while maintaining a level of care needed to get them back to that level of independence but not costing the facilities, the clients, the providers too much time and money on a wasted effort. Um, Definitely worthwhile to form those relationships now before you have a client that needs that care. Another quick note on staffing. Unfortunately, with some of the changes in regulatory guidance for nursing facilities, whether that's skilled nursing, a nursing home, even home health agencies, due to some increases in staffing requirements under recent regulations. It may be that we start seeing some staffing issues and lack of availability at some nursing facilities, whether that's a skilled care facility or a nursing home, as providers look to fill up their rosters to anticipate those staffing needs as those go into effect over the next couple years, which could mean some shuffling around from facility to facility of various staff. So be looking at how to provide your clients the most options for that care if they not only can't qualify for care in some cases, but if they can't find a place to receive care. There was an American Hospital Association study just a few years ago that showed between 2019 and 2022 the length of time in the hospital before discharge to post acute care had increased over 15%. And in many cases, it was not because of the severity of the in hospital need, it was because they had trouble finding places to discharge people to for that post acute care. So again, talking just a little bit about products, and Jamie did such a great job mentioning one of my favorites with Aetna, also GTL, Medico, Heartland. There's tons of short-term type care products out there that are facility, home-based, flexible to use for either one. There's a lot of great options under there, and of course, niches in underwriting, niches in how those different products are designed are the key here. But look for solutions that fit around your client's current coverage, whether they've got a supplement, whether they've got retiree coverage, whether they have a Medicare Advantage plan. Look for something that compounds and builds on the coverage they already have and make sure that they are filling in those gaps appropriately. And what I always look at when I build a package of protection for clients is how do I protect against high velocity risks? Singular problems that if they go wrong, they will go wrong very fast and they will cause larger and longer lasting problems. And unfortunately, skilled nursing care, particularly a denial of skilled care, is one of those high velocity risks. So, having options for your client is a critical piece of your business to make sure that you can keep people healthy and at home where they would like to be. Last note on this slide, take a hard look at overbuying now. Jamie did a great job showing some of those maxed out benefits on the Aetna plan. And I think with most plans, that is a really good option to look at because many of these short term plans don't have, or they don't always make financial sense to add something like an inflation rider, which is common in traditional long term care plans. So take a look at maybe overbuying now to accommodate some of that inflation over the next several years and making sure that this is a policy that will follow your clients through their life. Again, reach out if you need this slide deck. I do have just a couple critical pieces of resources here, a couple Medicare publications regarding facility based care, that facility checklist I mentioned, some information on home health care services. And again, I've got a ton of other great resources. If you have any interest in this, I've got my contact info on this last slide. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. But with that, we will get on to the next presenter.